Hey Lennies, welcome back. As many of you know, our channel is all about free roaming your bunnies, and so many of you are always sending us beautiful messages thanking us for inspiring you to free roam your bunnies. And when I hear stuff like that, it just really makes everything that we do on this channel worth it. Despite this, I've never actually made a full-on video on how to transition your rabbits to free roaming and what steps you should take and why you should take them. So keep watching if you want to learn more about how to free roam your rabbits. All right, guys, so I know that ultimately free roaming your rabbits is sort of like the ideal dream situation where you come home from work and your rabbit's waiting for you at the door and they've had a full day of freedom, exercise. It really is as great as it sounds. But before I get into what you should be doing, I want to delve back a little bit into the history of why rabbits are viewed as caged animals to begin with.
Did you know the idea of keeping rabbits outside in small hutches originates from way back when rabbits were first bred for meat? Hutches were used as a holding space for rabbits with no room to exercise, so they could gain weight before becoming someone's meal. In the early 20th century, rabbits along with mice and rats became highly sought-after laboratory experiments and were housed in wire-bottomed cages to keep them isolated and organized. Rabbits did not survive long in these conditions. From the time of their domestication, bunnies have since moved from our plates and into our hearts and homes, thus making small hutches and cages a cruel thing of the past. Bunnies deserve to be housed in large indoor spaces with plenty of room to hop, jump, sprawl out, and stand up, in addition to at least 4 to 8 hours of daily exercise.
So I wanted to give you guys that brief little history because it's important to understand that rabbits were caged initially for the purpose of fattening them up, and not because it was healthy for them or, a way to protect them from cords or cables in the home. Those are all sort of secondary notions that we've developed to sort of excuse caging rabbits in the modern day, right? And so that imagery of caging rabbits still exists, mostly because rabbits are still sort of viewed as livestock in many places. And so you'll even see it in mainstream pet stores and carnivals and festivals is that imagery of rabbits in a cage. But you won't see cages for dogs, right? Because we view that as cruel. We view dogs as needing space and needing to run. But for some reason, we can't quite do that with rabbits yet. I don't know why. So I personally just want to take the word cage out of rabbit vocabulary. And if you want to be part of the solution, let's actually start saying X-pen or playpen or NIC grids. When you use the word cage, someone who may not be familiar with rabbits or a novice will hear that and they'll get the wrong idea. They'll think that rabbits belong in cages. And all it takes is just using an alternative word, like I'm gonna put my rabbit in its pen. That sounds a lot better than, well, time to get you back in the cage now. It's like you had your 2 hours of fun, now let's lock you up. A lot of people say, how can I convince my mom to let my rabbit free roam? It's up to her, not me. Show your parents this video, or if you're just looking for that extra push, you want to hear it from someone who's been doing it for 3.5 years, I can tell you it's so rewarding. Lennon lives a really happy, relaxed life. You can do it with more than one bunny. There's plenty of free roaming bunnies out there that live in pairs or in trios. It's really nice to be able to wake up every morning and she's, waiting for her breakfast and she goes and kind of takes a nap wherever she wants. Sometimes she'll sleep under a table or under a stool. It's a really nice freedom that's irreplaceable. I can kind of plop down on the couch with Lennon, watch a movie, you know, really hang out with her. I mean, how do you get to hang out with your rabbit any other way? You can't unless you actually share a space with them. And that's how you develop a really good relationship with them. So, you know, rabbits really don't do well outdoors. I've made a ton of videos explaining why. They're prey animals, so they're really vulnerable to a lot of things in the outdoors, including predators and really bad weather. They're also really great escape artists. They might find their way out of that cage outside, and that's gonna be really troublesome for you. If you notice your rabbit, you know, rattling the cage bars or digging at the cage, it's because they really want to get out. Your rabbit is trying to talk to you. They're trying to tell you something. They're trying to say, get me out of here, please. So the two biggest factors in people not being able to toss their cages is 1, stigma, and 2, fear. Rabbits are sort of viewed as being stinky or, you know, pooping everywhere or mentally underdeveloped, and therefore belong in a hutch or a cage outside. And then 2, fear. Fear that your rabbit will get into trouble and destroy something. Now, some benefits to free roaming are exercise. Your rabbits are less likely to be obese. It keeps their gut mobilized, so they're less likely to develop GI stasis. You'll also develop a stronger bond with your rabbit because you're not going to have any boundaries separating you two. You know, they'll learn to trust you. They'll be less skittish. It's also less expensive to free roam. You know, cages and hutches are anywhere from like $100 to $500, and even building your own cage can be very time consuming and costly. Bunny proofing supplies might be like 20 to 30 bucks at the most. Finally, your rabbit will be happy. You know, mental health is really important for rabbits, and cages can cause depression, they can cause sadness, they can cause anxiety. So here are my tips for you guys to start free roaming your rabbits. 1, get to know your rabbits. You know, get to know their mannerisms. Try to understand them. What makes them scared? What makes them happy? Where does your rabbit like to hide? Do you find them sort of gravitating toward the couch, under the bed? What sort of things do they like to chew? Remember, no 2 rabbits are alike, and getting to know these traits will really help significantly in building trust with your rabbit, and also just knowing what parts of the house are going to work best for them, you know, and knowing where you're going to be able to find them if you need them. You know, for instance, with Lennon, I know she's always going to be under the couch or under the bed or something like that. Get your rabbit spayed and neutered. This is very important. I've said this in a lot of videos. Getting your rabbits fixed really helps reduce aggressive behavior or territorial behavior. When rabbits are territorial, they tend to leave their markings everywhere. They tend to be a little more destructive. They tend to be a little more hyper sometimes. And it's gonna help significantly with my next point, which is litter box training. In order to free roam your bunnies, guys, you need to litter box train them, because I always hear from people, oh, well, I tried to free roam them, but they just kept pooping and peeing everywhere. Well, if they're not using a litter box, then that's what's gonna happen. I'm just gonna be frank with you guys. But once they're spayed and neutered and they're using the litter box diligently, you're gonna be loving your life, and they're gonna be loving their life, because you're not gonna have to do any cleaning up after them other than cleaning out the litter box. It's just gonna make your life so much easier. So I have a video on how to litter train your rabbits, which I will link in the iCards above. Next, bunny proof. Once you've really gotten to know your rabbit and you know what they really gravitate toward, what they like to chew, you know, are they liking that baseboard? Do they like, you know, the legs of that chair? Because if that's the case, I'm either gonna remove that chair or I'm gonna bunny proof it. You know, once you get to know what's really going on in your rabbit's head, bunny proof those items. And, you know, I know Lennon really, really well. And at this point, I know that she's not interested in X, Y, and Z. And so I'm not going to bother even bunny proofing that stuff. No two rabbits are alike. So take that knowledge, bunny proof where you can, because when people say, well, I don't trust my rabbit around cords and cables, well, it's as simple as just protecting those cords and cables. It does not mean you have to cage your rabbit 24 hours a day just because you prefer leaving the cords and cables dangling around. Or don't leave your favorite shoes on the floor. Just take that extra step and put your shoes in the closet. And this is actually going to make you a much more organized person, which I really like. It's just tiny efforts like that that really allow you to free roam your rabbits without having any problems. So the more you do it, the more it becomes a habit. So you kind of go, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't leave that out there in the open for Lennon to grab. And if you really think about it, we baby proof our homes, we dog and cat proof our homes. So this isn't any different. You know, when people say it's just too much work to bunny proof, I'm like, you guys, it's really not. I can't tell you how many times, you know, we'd come home when I was a kid and my childhood dog had destroyed something, you know, especially as a puppy. And so to separate rabbits from dogs as being more destructive, I think is a disservice to rabbits and also inaccurate. Okay, next, trust. And this kind of goes back to getting to know your rabbit a little bit, but you really have to build trust with your rabbit. Most importantly, if you don't trust yourself as a rabbit owner, then I'm gonna say that your free roaming is not gonna be very successful. When I walk out the door every day, I know for a fact that Lennon is not going to destroy my entire apartment. You know, I think sometimes people tend to underestimate rabbits a lot, their intelligence, their capabilities. Rabbits are actually very methodical in everything that they do. They are not dumb animals. The other cool thing is that unlike dogs and cats, rabbits are crepuscular, so they tend to sleep during the day while you're gone anyway. Once you start to let go of that fear of leaving them alone and understand that your rabbit is not out to destroy your entire house, that's not their goal, it'll make it a lot easier for you to let them free roam. So in terms of how to transition, I really recommend to start small, which is what Lennon and I did. You know, she would be enclosed most of the time, and then I would kind of let her free roam when I was home, and I'd observe her and supervise her. And then I took it up a notch and I would go out for like 2 or 3 hours and come home, and if everything was intact, then I'd be able to leave home for a little longer, 4 or 5 hours, and then take that up a notch. And finally, I could go out for a full day of work and school and feel comfortable with leaving her alone. Another thing I want to tell you guys is rabbits do tend to be more destructive as babies and teenagers than as older adults. And I can say now very safely that as Lennon, as a 3.5-year-old, which I think that's like, she's in her late 30s in human years, she is a lot less destructive than she was when she was a baby. She used to just go after everything because they've got so much curiosity. They just want to taste everything, and it's kind of like having a puppy. You know, as they get older, they mature. They're a lot calmer. They're not as hyper. They're less curious of their surroundings because they've already gotten to know your place so well, and they know what everything is. They know what tastes good, what doesn't taste good. And rabbits do tend to get bored of things pretty easily, so they might be really interested in something one day and they'll never go back to it again after that day because they realize, well, it was fun while it lasted. Okay, next, get a pet cam. For those of you who like to have a little more control, a pet cam can be really beneficial to you. That way you can kind of observe your rabbit while you're gone. You can look at them on your phone. A lot of pet cams now, you can talk to your rabbit through the microphone. You can toss them a treat. Technology has really come very far, so I really do recommend getting that if you just want to make sure that they're not getting into any trouble. Restrict access. Now, just because you free roam your rabbits does not mean you have to give them access to your entire apartment or your entire house. And I think that's a misconception that a lot of people have. You know, if you only want them to have access to the living room, you know, or the kitchen area, you know, it's okay to close that door and not let them in a certain room. Use a baby gate or a playpen to block off certain areas. You know, when I go out, I make sure to close my bedroom door now because I just want to make sure, you know, she's not hopping around on my bed while I'm gone, or, you know, just being mischievous, and that. And give your bunnies plenty of chew toys, guys. I can't enforce this enough. If you give them the right chew toys and you're also giving them unlimited hay to chew on, that is going to take care of boredom. They're going to be less inclined to target your belongings if you're giving them the right stuff to chew. And finally, so know that you're gonna make mistakes, and this has happened to me plenty of times. Sometimes you might come home and something might be chewed up. It's good just not to beat yourself up over it or be mad at your rabbit. You know, it's not like they knew that that was something valuable. It's all just a learning lesson, and it just teaches you to bunny proof even better next time. The only thing that, you know, I would be very careful of is just making sure that you don't leave things in their way that are life-threatening. So I think the cords and the cables are probably the most important. Maybe plants that could be toxic to them, plastics that might be chewable because that's not going to digest well in their system. Material things can be replaced, but your rabbits can't be. That's the way that I look at it. Now, there are 3 circumstances in which I don't recommend free roaming your rabbits or giving them roam of the entire house. One of them being if you have another predator in the house that your rabbit didn't grow up with or they're not bonded with, because there's a chance that they'll attack or antagonize your rabbit, especially when you're not home. 2 is if you have more than 1 rabbit in the house and they're not bonded together. That's pretty dangerous because that can result in a very violent fight. And 3 is if you have a toddler in the house, just because toddlers don't always know when to be gentle with rabbits. Now, I've seen some really beautiful setups on the internet of custom condos that people have built and really intricate enclosures, but I think it's important to note that most people don't have that kind of time, money, and space or resources to create those things, and that's just me being pragmatic and realistic about it. So this is not to criticize people who do keep their rabbits enclosed. It's all about the quality of the enclosure and the space of the enclosure. Because if your rabbits don't have the room to do their zoomies and binky and flop, then whatever space you're giving them serves no purpose at all. All right, guys, so that's it for this video. I hope it's inspired some of you to take that extra step. I know it was a little more of like a pep talk than anything. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, all that jazz. We'll see you all later. Bye.